Last time, he had to escape a corrupt country while rescuing a photographer, pull off a heist of boundless proportions, and save a jungle plantation from a horde of ants. Stay tuned to see how he gets out of trouble this time, including a problem he created himself. Mac is at a small-town airport, minding his own business, probably drinking a very terrible cup of coffee, when he finds a message hidden in his cup. Terry, the lead villain, is played by Michael McGuire. Dark Shadows fans know him. Cheers fans definitely know him as Summer Sloan, the guy that broke Diane's heart. Their target, an armored car, rolls in. Mac tries to get ahead of the villains. Instead of blasting the door open, he decides to make a torch to cut through the lock and warns the guard. However, it doesn't quite go as planned. The torch works, but they take off the guard anyway. Mac ends up digging his own grave alongside a guy named Dave. Dave, by the way, is carrying some serious PTSD from his time as POW. He is played by Hindle. The man has 180 rolls to his name. He got his big break in 1971's Proud Rider and even made a pit stop in Porky's 1 and 2, working steadily for decades. Mac sweet-talks his way into the workshop using the aircraft that is arriving as cover and gets to work building explosive devices. Perfectly normal MacGyver behavior. They decide to try the old fire truck. For a brief, glorious moment, it works. Then the truck runs out of water, gets disabled, because the show was not going to let Mac get off that easy. Mac and Kelly get secured in the walk-in freezer, and Kelly, by the way, is played by Kay Lenz, with over 115 roles, mostly in TV. Mac fashions a rail and funnel system to freeze the lock and bust them out. In theory, this could actually work. In the time it takes on screen, absolutely not. That lock would still be happily sitting at room temperature outside when the credits rolled. The physics say no, but MacGyver says yes, 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 and of course MacGyver has to win. They escape. Mac rigs up an RC plane with one of his explosive devices and sends it sailing towards the aircraft. That aircraft, by the way, is a 1980 Beechcraft Baron 58 Papa. Dave makes a break for the helicopter. Remember Dave? Well, he faces his demons and he takes out the baddie by clipping him with a helicopter skid. That particular move was so popular in 80s action TV, they might as well have had it on a menu. Mac is riding the rudder of the plane to prevent it from taking off. It's a good stunt. However, the bad guy inside tries to counter him by turning the control yoke. Here's the problem. The yoke controls the ailerons in the elevator. It has zero effect on the rudder. Points for the visual, 0 points for the aeronautics. Of course, Mac finishes off the job by taking out the last baddie and saves the day. Oh, and more about that chopper. That's a Bell 47 Golf. The twin saddlebag fuel tanks were introduced in this model, and the Bell 47 was the first helicopter certified for civilian use. It was a mainstay for television and radio stations, and oddly enough was also used as lunar lander trainers for the Apollo program by NASA. Mac saves the day once again, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give Last Stand 8 rolls of tape. We still don't know Mac's method of employment. He just seems to take on jobs for both civilian and military contracts. So now Mac trades in the desert airstrip for something even considerably hotter. He's heading out to help some old friends, and things are about to get very, very explosive. And now on to Hellfire. Where do I even start? Mac arrives at a friend's oil operation by chopper with geological surveys in hand, ready to be helpful. Enthusiastic even. A fuse blows a little bit later, no big deal. He just bypasses it with a gum wrapper. It is discovered that Mac, as well as Bill, were hellfighters, especially proficient in fighting oil fires. Bill is played by Cooper Huckabee, early in his career here, fully in the handsome lead lane. Later, he transitioned to darker, more villainous roles. The T to villain pipeline has claimed many an actors. Laura is played by Nana Visitor. Major Kira, Commander Kira, whatever you like. If you're a Deep Space Nine fan, you just did a double take at a 1985 oil field. Mac's bypass fuse is short term. Wind shattered a light bulb. The bypass fuse lets it continue shorting, and guess what? The gas ignites. The oil well catches fire. Mac caused the oil well fire. He's a genius and a menace. Just let that sit for a second. The man whose entire brand is fixing things accidentally set an oil well on fire because he bypassed a fuse. Now they're in crisis mode. They can't wait, nor can they afford professional help. They need dynamite. From a mine 50 miles away, they load into an old truck and head out. They arrive at the mine, and the shack is literally falling apart around them. It's loaded with old, unstable dynamite. Well, that rickety old shack problem? Not a problem anymore. They take care of that permanently. They load up the crates onto a man-made shock-absorbing system so they don't turn the truck into a crater on the drive back. 50 miles, overnight, old truck, sweating dynamite. Yeah, that sounds like a fun ride to me. All of a sudden, the throttle return spring breaks. Mac pulls a spring out of a pin and fixes it. Now, the broken return spring would give you a stuck throttle, but not necessarily a loss of power. But if they stalled out, it might have prevented a restart. But hey, it's Mac, so it works. The leaking nitroglycerin in the dynamite starts destroying the brakes on a downhill stretch, and they crash into the river. Now they have to build a delivery device. They choose a thermos filled with the liquid nitro to get the charge to the top of the well. Uh-oh. The pulley malfunctioned. They had to quickly fix it, drop the charge, and after a blast, the fire is snuffed out. Then Mac offers to stay and help rebuild. Was it guilt because deep down inside he knows he caused it? Is he just that nice of a guy, or is he bored? I think it's because he caused all of this and he knows it. But he's going to fix it anyways. What a guy. Oh, and that helicopter he arrived in. That's a 1979 Hughes 500. The modern variant, the MD 500 Echo, in current 2026 money, runs about $800,000 to $1.2 million. So overall, he fixed the problem and saved a friendship along the way. Overall, I give Hellfire 8.5 rolls of tape. Now he goes from one fire to another, this time working for, but also against the feds. The Prodigal is up next. The Prodigal. And before we get to the plot, we need to mark a milestone. This is the first time we see Max beachfront apartment. Previously, the man was living in a planetarium. He went from sleeping under the stars to ocean views. How much money is he making anyways? And wait just a second. He's supposed to be an environmentalist. Come on, man, recycle your paper. For shame. A guy named Frank shows up looking for help with personal security, and Mac, who's supposedly a personal security expert as well, immediately loses him, and then steals a car to follow him. He tells Frank to a lumberyard, and his brother Joey arrives shortly thereafter. He removes the lug nuts from Joey's car, and the wheels stay on for now. Joey is played by Richard Romanus, who is seen as the antagonist in the casino episode in one of my earlier 18 videos. He is the real-life brother of Robert Romanus, who plays Frank. That definitely adds to the character chemistry and depth. Frank tells Joey he wants out. Joey is not excited about that, so Mac rigs a distraction to get Frank clear, and then, during the chase sequence, the wheels fall off Joey's car, literally. A marshal arrives at Mac's place to correct Frank. Frank wants to see his dying mother before he goes into custody. The feds, of course, say no. Mac goes to see her instead, and she says she wants to see Frank. Mac bumps into Joey in the hall. At the courthouse, Mac cuts the radiator hose on the agent's vehicle, rents a tow truck, and causes a distraction smoke screen to get them to imply there's a fire and move Frank. Once their vehicle is disabled, they flag down Mac, who's in the truck, and Frank hides in the cab. Oh, one of those agents. Agent Larson, by the way. If he looks familiar, that's Michael Champion. Total Recall, Beverly Hills Cop, Toy Soldiers. He was everywhere in 80s action. Meanwhile, Joey, showing that he's not purely a one-dimensional villain, moves his dying mother back home and leverages the judge's connection to make a federal warrant near impossible to get. Once Frank arrives, he calls the feds, impersonates Frank's voice, and sends them to Mac's place, setting up a trap. Frank might get to see Mama, but Joey wants to finish Frank. Mac and Frank escape to the attic and make a harpoon-launched zip line. There are two goofs here. One, the fiber wire used to pull the rod out of the harpoon is visible, and two, Mac's stunt double is clearly visible during his zipline descent. They escape, and Frank realizes he's finished. Not the flashiest episode of the season. No oil fires, no explosives, no ants, but it's got heart. The brother casting is a quiet little production win and adds to the character chemistry and tension. And Mac going toe-to-toe with the federal system is on brand. I'm going to give The Prodigal 7.5 rolls of tape. And that's another batch in the books. Last Stand, Hellfire, and The Prodigal. 3 solid episodes. A tight thriller, an explosion of fire that Mac definitely caused, and a family story with some layers. So let's stay tuned for the next ones where Mac has a couple of reunions coming. One with family and old Target as well. Some brand new problems to solve, and we finally get some clarity on who this man actually works for. So until then, be kind, rewind.